Hello and welcome to my second video, which is part 2 for Veeam Certified Engineer VMCE. Um, so yesterday actually, or in the first video, I would say, um, we downloaded the Veeam software from Veeam.com and we unzipped it and we ran these two ISOs and we installed a Veeam backup replication, Veeam backup enterprise manager, and Veeam self-service file restore. And we all talked about this thing. And then we installed the Veeam one. And when we finished installing it, it asked us to reboot. Um, and that's where we ended the video. So this is part 2, and in this part we're gonna continue where we left off. So if I click on the DVD again, um, there is one part. We already installed the Veeam 1 server, and the second thing is we need to install a Veeam 1 monitor client. What Veeam 1 monitor client does actually is um, that's the client it uses to pull information um, about what Veeam has to offer basically about the infrastructure. And there's an option to install this Veeam the monitor client within the Veeam software, but we're gonna go ahead and install it. So we need to install this thing basically wherever. What does it say? Veeam client setup. I don't think. Maybe it got installed when we installed um, the, the trial version before. Prior to 9.5 version 9.5 release, I have the like a preview. So most likely that was the reason. I'm gonna go ahead and click on it. Um, but normally that's the way you install it. Apologize for that. Um, so this is pretty fast, so this part is done. So we don't need this the installation media, so I'm gonna go ahead and click it. So V1 monitor was installed. Okay, I'm sorry. So let's go and click on a first thing first is the Veeam backup. We can click here or we can click here basically. See, when this is the shortcut we saved when we launched this thing. It kind of, what I'm saying is kind of redundant, but it's the part 2, so I am not sure how much time people are gonna take, between the video 1 and video 2, so I might be repeating myself. So this is basically my recenter, and you can see I have a a lot of machines. So let's so if you look at this menu here, you will see a storage infrastructure, virtual machine. Let's see if so these are the options here. Backup and replication is the one where you configure jobs and you look at the status of the job. Um, and the backup infrastructure where you define actually um, your point to your backup infrastructure here. Okay guys, it was taking a little longer time because I am a remote to this vCenter. So if we go to our backup infrastructure, and under backup infrastructure, this is my vCenter actually, and my vCenter has 3 different hosts that I'm pointing to. And if I go to under virtual machines, and if I click on my vCenter, you can see at many number of machines, the test machines I have. Um, so and this one is my the Veeam backup server. You can see it. Okay, so basically what we're going to do, since this is just for testing purposes, and it's the Veeam and backup, so we're going to try to create a job. Um, so if we go under backup and replication, under backup and replication you have a job, so we can create a new job. For example, we can do a backup, we can do replication, we can do a backup copy, we can do VM copy, and we can do file copy. So you can see there are multiple options. So we're going to start from backup. Before we do a backup, it's going to ask you where you want to backup to actually. So under the storage infrastructure, you need to add a storage. Okay guys, so what we're gonna do actually, we're gonna create a job first, just a backup job. We can name this backup job, say um, first backup job, and click next. It's pretty simple actually, it's very simple, anybody can do it. Click on add, under add, this is my cluster actually where I'm hosting all these things. So what I'm going to do, I can pick any machine for example, so I'm going to pick a um, let's see, the smaller machine. I can take this one. Um, this is a storefront for Citrix actually. So so right here, once you select the machine, you have an option for exclusion. Hey, exclude if you want to, remove it. By default take the other disk. It has only one disk, so you can actually exclude whatever you want to. You can use the template processing settings. You can use one of the templates um, select. See, this one say template backup functionality is available in network backup mode only. So there are several modes which we're going to discuss. So for now, what we're going to do, we're going to just click OK, and um, I click next. When you click next, it says the backup proxy. See, there are several components of Veeam backup and replication software. One is a backup proxy. What backup proxy does, it basically, right now we have one server which is a repository. It has all the roles installed, and it's going to do all the processing too. So at one point, when you are backing up the infrastructure, there comes a point where the server cannot handle the load. So basically, then you assign, like a backup proxy on your infrastructure somewhere, which will do the processing, everything, and do the heavy load basically. So we're gonna go in detail for every role, but right now the backup proxy is a automatic selection. We have only one server, so see right now is only one. We can choose it manually. If we have a multiple at the different, um, on different clusters, on different location, where we are backing up the machine. Um, so in this case, it doesn't matter it's automatic or not, and we'll choose the automatic selection. And um, see right here when we installed the Veeam software, it created a default backup repository, which was on this server. You can do it like, hey, which one is the default? Basically, just giving you a default repository right now. And a retention policy is by default the stored point to keep on disk, which is 14. Okay, so by default, it keeps the restore point to 14 days, and we can configure a secondary destination for this job. Um, and if you click in advanced, and you can see there are a lot more options actually, the advanced option. Um, by default, this is a very important um, exam question as well, as far as for knowledge is concerned, because on my first time when I did the implementation, um, I was having an issue because it's like their repository was keep growing, and then later, when I got a little more experience, I went back and reconfigured it because the originally I did not configure properly. So these are all options, are very important option, and they make a very significant impact on your repository. We need to know what is the reverse incremental, what is the incremental, and then it's like what is the full backup, and then they're going to talk about what is a synthetic backup. So it's like this is the default setting. Hey, create a synthetic full backup periodically. We need to know, or from exam perspective or from knowledge perspective, hey, what is the difference between synthetic full backup and the active full backup? See right here, it said, hey, create a synthetic full backup on Saturday. Basically, you get all these incremental the backups. So what you do is on Saturday by default, it will combine all those things and create a full backup. We're gonna have almost exactly the same backup as a active backup, but the active backup is done straight or from the source, like the machine you're backing up, but synthetic is done on a from the incremental backup. So there are a lot of factors, or there are, like they're going to ask you, hey, why you want to do a backup? How does the synthetic backup affect? In what case you're going to use synthetic backup versus active backup? When you do active backup, it does a lot of resources. Use the bandwidth, it taxes on the machine. And on the other case, when you do a synthetic backup, then it does a lot of processing internally. So there are questions about, hey, if your backup repository is strong or your network is strong, and strong means is like like you have enough bandwidth or enough power. So all these options we're gonna go over again, because right now we just want to set up um, the backup using the default options. And let's go for maintenance. Here's the storage level, the corruption guard, and this is a very a good option actually. If you enable this option, and it's going to go and check, detect, and auto heal corruption. At this point, I'm just going to leave it. So you can do it on a monthly basis. You're going to do it on a weekly basis. Then here you see a full backup maintenance. So use this setting to clean up, defragment, and compact full backup file periodically when the job schedule does not include periodic fulls. Because when you're creating a backup job, you can define, hey, look, after 2 weeks or after 15 days, create an active full backup. And you can see this option right here, remove deleted VMs after. By default, this thing is not checked. So the reason um, I'm pointing this thing, because these things are necessary. You need to know this thing for each option, what each option does, under what circumstances you have to select this option. Like, for example, what is this option? It's pretty simple option. Hey, if you check this thing, remove deleted VM after 14 days. So what it is, like, if you delete that VM basically from the vCenter, or the VM is no longer available, it's still going to keep that the recovery point for 14 days, and after 14 days, it's going to clean it. So if you, by default, it's going to keep it forever, which is a good option. But if you are adding or deleting machines and doing a backup, then you're going to run out of space. So in this case, right here, so the bottom line is you need to know that by default, this option is unchecked. And when you check this thing, then the default option is 14 days. You can change it to whatever number you want. Um, whatever number of days you want, you can change it to, like, 365, for example. Hey, keep it for 1 year. But we're gonna keep it unchecked. And here's the deal. The second thing is the defragment and compact full backup file. When So here's again, by default, it's not checked. And this thing you have to remember. So I'm gonna keep repeating myself just to let you know these are the options. These are the important options to remember. Um, so this option, once you check this option, you can select basically, every month. You can do it every month. Like every the last Saturday. So this is the default option. You can change it whatever option you want, or you can select the weekdays. Hey, which day you need to do it. So this thing again, you have to remember it. When you check weekly on selected days, by default the Saturday is selected. So I'm gonna uncheck it. So under storage, you can see a data reduction thing, by the way. Enable inline data deduplication, which is recommended and is checked. Exclude soft file blocks, recommended. We don't care about soft file. Exclude deleted file blocks, recommended. And here's the compression level actually. So again, this is a extremely important to remember that the compression level is set to optimal. It's set to optimal, and optimal is recommended. So there's two different things, right? Optimal is recommended and optimal is selected by default. When you change it to none, you can change. See here, when you change it to none, for example, it says here disabling compression reduces performance due to increased amount of data that must be transferred to the target storage. So basically, if there's no compression, it's more data. So dedo friendly. So why we need a dedo friendly? By the recommended compression level for deduplicating storage appliance and external WAN accelerator. So if you have a deduplicating storage, by the way, we're going to talk about it. There are several the partner. The Veeam has partnership, and the storage units, they do a automatically deduplication. So in that case, we will choose this option, and then you have a high compression. And this thing is again a pretty important to um, to remember that. Yeah, I'm gonna highlight it just for a second. So high compression produces additional 10% compression ratio over optimal at the cost of 10% higher CPU usage. So when you are setting up compression level to high, basically the compression ratio is 10% more than the optimal, and it's going to text your CPU 10 times higher usage. So and the third option is extreme. So see what extreme does it basically. Extreme compression provide additional 3% compression ratio over high. So the key word is over high. In a high, it was 10% compression ratio over optimal, and the optimal was the recommended way. So these are pretty tricky, things to remember actually. So optimal is recommended, high will text 10% compression and 10 times higher CPU over optimal. And then extreme gonna do a 3% compression ratio over high. So basically if the high does it a 10%, so extreme is doing 13% over what you call it, the optimal. 3% over high and actually 13% over optimal. So these are the key points to remember. At the cost of twice, 2x higher CPU usage. So, and see here it was, on high it was 10. And here, if I'm not mistaken, is a over high is twice. So basically, the higher the compression level is, more texts are on the CPU. So again, let's go back here. There are 5 options by default. Optimal is selected. You can do a dedo friendly if you have a dedo friendly the backup storage, where you're backing up data to, not where you're some other places. And the fourth one is high, and then you have extreme. And the storage optimization. So this was the compression level. Now you have the storage optimization. A storage optimization have like 4 different things. It's a local target, it's a LAN target, it's a WAN target, and a local target with 16 terabyte plus backup files. So these are 4 options for storage optimization. And here's the encryption one. If you want to do a encrypt backup file encryption. So that's where, remember, you can set a password, and you can set up a encryption password, and you go to encryption, and see, if you don't remember this encryption password, basically what will happen if you set this thing up and don't remember it, or the guy who set this thing up is no longer with the company. That's where your the enterprise manager kicks in. If when we get to that point, then we're going to talk about it, because all this option you see here between a data reduction, compression level, and a storage optimization and encryption, these are the key concept, when you're setting up a backup, and it's very, very important. And fourth tab is notification. You can set a notification here, the email address, and or you can set up the whole thing in a what you call um, you can set up it globally in the enterprise manager. So regardless if you do it here or not, it's gonna do a, like any backup job, you want to get a notification. But if you choose to do it here, um, you can. It's pretty simple. It's pretty standard, just like any other thing. So, and you can choose the global notification setting. You can choose the custom notification setting. Hey, success, warning, error, and set the successful backup detail in the VM attribute. You can set the notes. Um, so we're not going to change anything here. vSphere, guest questions. So basically, you know, you you can enable this thing right here if you have an application running and you need it. So the VM, if the VM tools are installed, it will use the application layer questions, and here's the change block tracking, the CBT for all protection machine. Yeah, and the thing is, there is um, you know a lot of detail associated with this thing. So once we set up this job, and then we're gonna actually go back, and we're gonna talk about each option in detail, because all these options are directly related to your Veeam exam. They might ask you, hey, if this option is selected by default or not. Okay, no, it's not selected by default. Okay, if you select this option, how does it affect your backup? If you have the change block tracking, if it's enabled by default or not. Okay, it is selected by default. So if you say, hey, if you what does it affect if the change block tracking is not available? Then we get to a like a VMware versus a Hyper-V, scenario. And here's the integration. Hey, primary storage and integration, like use storage snapshot instead of VM snapshot. So now we're talking about the backup storage snapshot. And depending what kind of storage unit we are using, you have an option to take the storage level snapshot and make Veeam work with that one instead of taking individually snapshot. That we're going to talk about it. So right here you can see the use storage snapshot instead of VM snapshot, because that's the VM snapshot is taken by the VM tool. Add the data source for this job. So using storage snapshot reduces the impact on the production environment from the VM snapshot command. So this is also an exam question. Basically, hey, what is the difference between a storage snapshot versus what you call it, the VM snapshots. See, if you're backing up a lot of machines, you're gonna see that like there's gonna be a great impact on it, because all the machine has to take a snapshot, individual VMs has to take a snapshot, versus you can take the snapshot of the whole storage itself. And a also limit process VM count per storage to 10, but 10 is, see, first thing, it's not selected by default. There's no limit. So if you can check it, then if you check this thing, then it's the snapshot set to 10. So by default, the job will process all included VMs located on the same data store from a single storage snapshot. So this is basically if you select a storage the snapshot, then these settings are being applied. Then failover to standard backup. Perform standard backup from VM snapshot if the backup from the storage snapshot failed. So this by default this option is not checked. If you check this option and for some reason your storage backup failed, so this will revert back to a VM snapshot. So, but this option is not selected by default. So these are the options. So script, these are the script. These are the same standard setting for all backup software, where if the backup, you're using a system which doesn't support VSS, for example, volume snapshot. In that case, you can run a script to freeze the machine, take the backup, and after the backup job is done, you can run a different script. It's up to you. Um, so I'm going to take all the default options, so that's why I cancel it. So if you click on next, here is the enable application-aware processing. For example, if you have an Exchange, you have an Active Directory, you have a SQL Server, you can enable that option, and from here you can select the option. Right now, this has a SQL Server installed on this server, so basically what it does is SQL Turnkit, Exchange Turnkit options. I'm actually, to be honest with you, I'm not sure what is SQL installed or not, but exclusion disable. So in case for application, you can customize it. You can add it, um, different options. And I don't want to go too much in detail at this point. Enable file system indexing. You can create it so it can do indexing. So then you can search by file. And so for backup, you have to select a backup. So right here, I can actually add a standard account. Um, And here is the deal. It's called guest interaction proxy. So guest interaction proxy, we're going to talk about it. So the same thing is like the backup proxy. It since it's only one server, and this is one of very important things like guest interaction proxy. What does it do? So as you know, the Veeam software is agentless. So that's where the guest interaction proxies comes in. Before the backup, they inject some, like the commands to take a backup, and it's just on the fly. So we're going to talk about it later. And you can click on test now. So if there's a password missing or there's some error messages, then it's gonna let you know. So it says the processing failed. Why it failed? So let's try again. So we got the warning. Yeah, it could be one reason because my the storage is only 100 and the machine I'm backing up is also 100. So let's see. And right here, you can run this job automatically. You say, hey, run it every day. And these are the options like run every day on weekdays or on these days. If I say on these days, I can select the days, which days. And on weekdays, it doesn't give you the option. It's gonna run automatically from Monday to Tuesday. And you can do it let's go back to every day, and you can run it monthly, and then you can run it periodically. So there is also a question about if you set a job to run it, like let's say you create two jobs, one job run at this time, like 10 o'clock every day, and the other job is run monthly at the same time, so which job gonna run first between the two? If you have two jobs for the same machine, one is daily, one is monthly in a scheduled job. So the answer is, hey, the monthly job will supersede the daily job. Um, and also here's the um, you can run it periodically. So I mean this option, the one we're talking about, this option, you're gonna see a question on this option, like how often you can run the backup job. Right here you can run a hourly, like 24 hours. You can select a minutes, basically one per minute, or you can select it continuously. So continuously means it's continuous backup. So that's what they say. You can, the minimum time you can select is continuous. So periodically, every um, every 24 hours, you can select every per minute, and you can select continuously. And I'm gonna go back here. I'm gonna leave the just the everyday one. And this is another important thing, the automatic retry. So by default, every job which is failed is going to try 3 times, and there's going to be a retry attempt for 10 minutes for each retry attempt for 10 minutes. So guys, here's the deal. The options we are setting up, you're going to see actually 2 or 3 questions on just on this screen. um, so that's why The Veeam exam is so difficult. Like you have to do the hands-on. If you don't do the hands-on, then you will not pass the test because they will change the wording, they will change the option, and they will trick you. Um, and also here you can select the backup window. See, the backup window is not selected by default, so you can actually select this thing if you want to terminate job if exceed allowed backup window. If the job does not complete with allocated backup window, it will be terminated to prevent snapshot commit during production hours. So this is kind of safety feature. Hey, if you're running a backup and it's not done till 6 in the morning where the production start, then then kill the backup. And here is the time you can select. You can see the blue one is selected, and white one is denied. So basically you can say, hey, um, let's say if I select this thing, like, see, between 4 to 8 I can deny the job. So to Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday they can back up anytime. So basically it's 4 a.m. to 7:59 p.m., which is the worst time you can select. So what I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna click it. So basically you say, hey, from 6 o'clock to 5 o'clock, no, from Monday to Friday. There you go. So this is your 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday. The job will not run. So in other hours it will run. So we're gonna actually cancel this thing. So finally, again, I'm gonna go back here. Um, so you select the new job. You can name it anything you want to, and then you can put the description here, who created, why it's created. So like, like 6 months down the road, someone else gonna look at it and they will know right away, hey, why this job is actually created. Right here we selected the machine. You can do exclusion, or you can, if you have a multiple jobs here, a multiple machines, you can add, instead of just one machine, I should be able to add another machine. Um, like I can select this SCCM, for example, and then I have an option to make this one go up or down, which one you want to back up first. Um, so I'm going to remove this thing right now. And then you go again, it's the backup proxy. We're going to talk about it right now. Is on automatic selection. This is very important to know. And then the backup repository, we're using the backup repository, which was created during the install. And the retention policy is for 14 days. You can actually change it. So this one is right here. Say for incremental backup, for incremental backup. Okay, come on. Actually, the store point count of the disks are larger depending on the full backup size. So there's also a trick, because the trick is, and there's a question on it, like, hey, you set up a retention policy for 14. Is there gonna be any time where you're gonna see more than 14? So the correct answer is yes, and we're gonna get into it. Why is gonna be. And this one is a secondary, destination for the job. Um, like a basically Veeam, it says like 3-2-1 rule, and that's another very important part. Like 3-2-1, what is 3-2-1? So 3-2-1 is like you need to have a 3 copies of the data at the 2 different medium and 1 offsite. If yes, 3-2-1. So, and this was the advanced options, which we didn't change anything. These are default options, which we went through this thing. And next, and save. And once you configure a job in like most software, it's going to ask if you want to run that job, uh, right away. So it's going to take a one snapshot right away. So I'm going to do finish, and it says, hey, it's running. So So guys, so this is just just the tip of the iceberg basically as far as the Veeam is concerned. This is the simple task right now. You can see it in this video. Um, and there is a lot more actually. It's only we did not even cover like 1% of the Veeam. And while it's running the backup, I'm gonna wait till it's been almost 40 minutes, so I don't want to make videos too long. So right here, if you are setting up a backup infrastructure, so in a backup infrastructure, when you are adding a backup repository, when you right click on it, see add backup repository. Right now, C is doing this is doing a by default created on the same server like a C backup. So that's where it's doing the backup, and probably that's why it might fail because we have only 75 GB free. Right here you can define a new backup. So when you add a backup repository actually here, that's where it will ask you, hey, the backup repository is a Windows server, is a Linux server, is a shared storage, or is a deduplicating storage appliance. So you remember when we were setting up the backup job, it asked you the compression level was the dedupe friendly. So in that case, you will choose the dedupe friendly if you have one of these storage appliance, and a very big like which storage appliances are supported by Veeam. So right now it's supported by EMC data domain, Exagrid, AHP store once. So these three are supported, and there are gonna be at least two questions on this, just on dedupe storage appliance, and not two, maybe more than two. Um, or they're going to be like a probably Veeam has a lot of questions on this one, so you're going to get two out of their pool. But regardless of certification, this option is so important. You cannot believe it. When you walk into a company and they say, yeah, we are using a data domain, and we are happy with the backup. You say, okay, you're happy with the backup and it's working fine. Okay, if in an Active Directory, for example, you have a service account and you don't know the password, and somebody changed the password for the service account, and if wherever the service account was used is it stopped working. For example, you have a SQL service using a service account, and the service will not start because somebody changed the password and nobody knows. So if it's easiest way is, hey, I'm gonna go and change the password, but then you never know how many different places that service account is used. So if you have Veeam, for example, you go and you can restore that user account or service account with the password. So like like a week old or month old, like you're gonna have an idea when the password change. So when you walk into the company and they say, hey, we're using EMC data domain, is your EMC data domain is capable of resetting your Active Directory password or not? I mean, this is just an example. So in that case, so if they say yes, no, we need to, but EMC data domain doesn't support, then you're gonna say, hey, you know what? You can implement Veeam, and Veeam will benefit your existing EMC data domain, for example. Because you already have the investment, so you can create your repository pointing to a EMC data domain. Same thing goes for Exagrid. Same thing goes for HP store once, and you know um, these are the options. And also from there's going to be a question about like, hey, for repository, is Linux server supported? Yeah, of course Linux server is supported because it's here. You can select Linux server storage. So Linux server with internal directly attached or mounted NFS storage. See, this is the what you call the punchline. uh, so Linux server is supported, but with the directly attached mounted NFS storage internal. So data mover process running directly on the server allow for more efficient backups, especially over slow links. So you might have a question like, hey, the Linux server with external drive, you know, external storage, it's not directly attached or it's not mounted. Is it supported? So hey, it's not supported. As the Linux server for repository is only supported if it has an internal directly attached or mounted NFS storage. And on the third option is right here about the share folder. So a share folder is SIFs. SMB share is supported when backups over Slowlink, we recommend that you specify a gateway server located in the same site with the shared folder. So what they're saying is if you want to use this option, then it's a good idea to use a gateway server. And we're going to talk about the different servers, like a backup proxy and the gateway servers later. So you need to have a gateway server. So see, just for this simple option, hey, we're just trying to add a new repository, and it's giving you that many options. Let's see if you choose the Microsoft Windows servers. Then it's going to ask you which server. We can add, this server is already added. Let's see if we can add a new one. No, actually, you know what? Here, so server is selected, and we know we have a backup repository created by default on this server on a C, the backup. This is also very important from exam perspective and from knowledge perspective. So, but it doesn't show anything. The reason it doesn't show it, you have to click on populate. Once you populate, it's going to show you whatever drives are there. See? So this server has a C drive and E drive. So it created a path on C. So you can select as E drive basically. You say, hey, you know what? We want to create another repository on E. So it's going to be E backups. So and populate again. I'm not sure why we have to populate. It doesn't do it dynamically. Capacity 99, free space this one. A load control, running too many concurrent tasks against the same repository may reduce overall performance. So this one is also a very, very important topic. Like when you are running a concurrent tasks on the same repository, it might slow down or the overall performance and the I/O. So there are settings actually right here under that. So see here, right here, by default, each jobs can have a maximum concurrent task, 4 concurrent tasks. And that's the by default. You can change it, you can add it or remove it, it is up to you. And also right here, limit read and write data rates too. So this way you can actually, we say you can limit it as like 1 megabyte, 2 megabyte, depending upon your scenario. But right here, by default, is not selected. So the question is, what are the options here? What are the default options? And what are the options you can change? And what are the options you can change to? So right here, if I click on Advanced, right here is asking me align backup file data blocks. Decompress backup data blocks before storing. This repository is backed by rotated hard drives. Rotated hard drive means it's like if you have a repository where you are using a external drives, for example, or USB drives, and your policy, as per company policy, is, hey, you know what? Take the drives out. For example, take the USB drive and take it home and put the new drive in. So what happens is when you take the drive out and put the drive back into a server, Windows might assign a different letter. So when different might assign a different letter, so Veeam will not know, hey, I'm looking for G drive. Hey, G drive is not there. There is the F drive. So if you choose this option, then Veeam will know, hey, there are rotated drives. So right here it says the backup pointing to the repository will tolerate the disappearance of previous backup files by creating a new full backup. So when you change the drive, so instead of incremental backup, it's going to take the whole new backup. Clean up the backup files no longer under retention on the newly inserted drives, and track backup repository location across unintended drive letter changes. So this option is extremely important to know. Right here, this option is use per VM backup. So per VM backup files may improve performance with the storage devices, benefiting from multiple I/O streams. This is recommended setting when backup to deduplicating storage appliance. So if you have a deduplicating storage appliances, then you can choose this option, and we will get into more detail later when we cover some basic stuff. So right here for my storage compatibility settings, the Veeam exam might ask you, hey, what are the options? What are the options are checked by default, and what is the difference between decompress backup block before storing? What is inline deduplication? I think we didn't talk about this thing is like a decompressed backup data block before storing. What is it? So it says the VM data is compressed by backup proxy. So you see, when we set up the backup job, we selected the backup proxy, which was set to auto. And the backup proxy had a different setting to compress the data. So the data is already compressed when it's being sent to this storage, right? So according to the backup job compression setting to minimize LAN traffic, why did we did that? Because we wanted to compress, because so it can travel faster on the LAN. Uncompressing the data before storing allow for archiving better deduplication ratio on the most deduplicating storage appliances at the cost of backup performance. So what this is saying, or basically, is like, hey, you are bringing a compressed data because you wanted to, you don't want to text your the network, but this appliance is already capable of doing a deduplication. So what should I do? So you can actually check this thing, decompress. So when the data is written before to that deduplicating appliance, it gets decompressed. So it can deduplicate actually. I know it sounds a little complicated, but once we go through, you will better understand. So by default, none of them is selected. So I'm going to click on next, and right here, the mount server. You remember when I was installing it, the Veeam, it said, hey, the mount server need to be updated because I had the trial version installed here before I installed this 9.5. So normally it asks you what is the mount server, and specify mount server to mount backup for a file level restore. So when you want to restore a file level, it has to mount somewhere. Your recovery point. And the vPower NFS service allow for running the virtual machine directly from the backup files, enabling advanced functionalities such as instant VM recovery, sure backup, and on-demand sandbox. So these are the major features, by the way. What is the Assure backup? What is the instant VM recovery? What is on-demand sandbox? So that is being powered by, they call it the vPower NFS service. So basically, let's say you backed up a device, for example, and that device crashes. Now you need to restore that file. Obviously, you can mount the restore point and you can restore from that mount point, but it's a production, for example, and you don't have the replica set up at that point. So what you can do, you can instantly bring that machine from the storage. So it's going to actually create a machine and mount it straight to your original location or different location depending upon your choice, and you're gonna have a VM up and running within I'm not gonna say seconds, but within minutes. And so that's kind of like an instant VM recovery. So it's running straight from the storage blocks, basically. And that's a huge topic, actually, and that's one of the major the feature in Veeam. Hey, instant VM recovery. So once you have an instant VM recovery and people start using it, and that data start being changed, so then you have an option to finalize it. Either you can bring back the original machine which was crashed, and whatever changes were done on a instant VM, the one you're running as an instant VM recovery. It can copies only those changes, or you can promote your the new machine and migrate to the production. So there are certain options once you have that machine using instant VM recovery up and running, and then you want to decide what to do. That's you have to perform a couple of more steps. Um, and again, we're going to talk about that one. So right here is talking about like, hey, enable VF service and mount server, and it's going to ask you for the folder. Folder basically is C program file Veeam backup NFS store. So um, I can select this one, E. I don't have to, but and also right here, click ports to change NFS server and backup mount listener port. So by default, the mount port is 1063, and the mount acceptor port for NFS service default value is 1058. Detected port is 1063. So, and same thing here is the vPower NFS port is 2049, and a 2049 basically. So these are the ports you need to remember, actually. Hey, what ports we are being used. So if you have a firewall enabled, you can actually make some exception rules. And you click on next. Changing NFS folder apply for all backup repository, blah blah blah. So we're gonna say proceed anyway. We're not using it right now. So, and import existing backup automatically. We don't want to do it right now. We don't have any. So we click on next. And here you go. So basically what we did here, we had one backup repository. We just created one more on the same server. Change the configuration backup location to the newly created repository. So what they're saying is, since we created a new backup repository right here, the backup repository 2. So it's saying, hey, when you're going to create a new job, instead of going to C backup, you want it to go straight to the E backup. I don't see any harm, so click here, okay. So guys, so it's been almost an hour, and I'm gonna pause this video here, and we're gonna continue. Thank you. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel.